A very good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of Walters Kluwer, a warm welcome to all our speaker and the attendees of this orthopedics webinar under Raj Medical Edge series. Our topic today is malignant bone tumors management. Now I request Dr. Vandana Mittal, please introduce our speaker for today's session.
Good evening, everyone. Our speaker today is the renowned orthopedic surgeon, Padma Shri Dr. Mail Vahanan Natarajan, MS, MCH, PhD in orthopedic oncology, DSc, FRCS, DSc honors. He is the chief orthopedic surgeon at MN Orthopedic Hospital, Chennai, and he was the 7th vice chancellor of the Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical University. This was in year 2009. Dr. M. Natarajan is recognized for his pioneering work in orthopedic oncology. He introduced the concept of limb salvage surgery by indigenous custom megaprosthesis as early as 1988. His personal series of 2,250 cases of custom megaprosthesis is the largest number by a single surgeon in the world. He has designed and invented 8 types of custom megaprosthesis, which have been patented. His long-term results of using the indigenous prosthesis were comparable with those of international authors using the foreign prosthesis. So this technique was accepted by orthopedic colleagues, and currently 22 states are following this methodology. His vision is zero amputation by the year 2030. That is, no patient with bone cancer in India should lose his or her limb. He has received 3 national awards from the President of India, Shri APJ Abdul Kalam. The first is Dr. B.C. Roy National Award in the year 2004, the National Award for Welfare of the Disabled in the year 2005, and Padma Shri Award in the year 2007. We at Walters Kluwer are honored to have been associated with him for more than 10 years now. And this association is through his book, Natarajan's Textbook of Orthopedics and Traumatology, which is currently in its 8th edition and was published in 2018. Over to Ravi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vandana. Also, we'll be taking all questions at the end of the webinar, and I request you to please post all your questions in the Q&A panel of this event. We'll try to address the maximum questions at the end of the session. Please also provide your feedback via link which we will post in the chat section of the webinar. Now we begin our session, and I hand over to Dr. Natarajan, and I request Dr. Natarajan to please start sharing his screen.
You can start, sir.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's been a pleasure to be here with you and share my views on the management of bone tumors. We are all aware that the incidence of bone tumors is very less, and it is, or in the broader context, it is only about less than all tumors, 1% less than all the tumors. There are several classifications of bone tumors, of which the WHO classification is very popular, and it classifies them into cartilage tumors, namely the benign osteochondromas, etc., as well as the malignant chondrosarcomas. The second major group is the osteogenic tumors, the benign ones being the osteoid osteoma and the osteoblastoma, and the malignant ones being the chondroblastic, fibroblastic, and osteoblastic sarcomas, and the other types of osteosarcomas. The broader classification goes on as the fibrogenic tumors, fibrohistiocytic tumors, hematopoietic tumors, notochordal, and the vascular tumors of bone. The popular staging of musculoskeletal neoplasms is that by Enneking, who basically classifies them into benign and malignant, and says that the benign tumors can be latent, active, or aggressive depending upon the clinical features and the radiological features. Annexing staging of musculoskeletal neoplasms basically from three groups, 1A and B, the low-grade intracompartmental ones. The 2A is the high-grade intracompartmental, and the 2B, which is the high-grade extracompartmental tumors, and then the tumors which have come out of the compartment with metastasis being the stage 3. Tumors are common in the age groups. From early age group, you have the simple unicameral bone cyst, and then 6 to 18 years, we have the benign tumors given in the list in the slide, and then the malignant tumors being the Ewing sarcoma and osteosarcoma. Age group adults 20 to 40, you get the giant cell tumors are common. And of course, above 40, you have the Paget sarcoma and metastasis from basically other tumors, fibrosarcomas, etc. This is a very common picture wherein the sites of the tumors are given. Chondroblastomas occurring in the articular cartilage, then you have the enchondromas in the metaphyseal region. The metaphyseal region shows the osteosarcomas. The diaphysis, you have the osteoid osteoma, fibrous dysplasia, and the round cell lesions, the Ewings, and the histiocytic lymphomas. So this is basically a classification on the location of tumors. The pre-op evaluation is always the same. You have the clinical examination followed by the various types of imaging, and then we stage the tumors, and then finally come to the conclusion based on the biopsy. From the radiographs, we see the pattern shown here, the reactive bone and the destructive pattern. You see, this is in the metaphyseal area, the osteosarcoma. CT scans give us a picture about the cortical penetration of the tumor, further the osseous details, and then we can make out the infiltration in the neurovascular bundle as well as the pulmonary metastasis. MRIs are very useful to find out the soft tissue component. In addition to the extent of the bony lesion, we get an idea of the soft tissue component as well as the relationship with the neurovascular bundle. After the imaging, we come to the biopsy. Currently, earlier on, it was an open biopsy which was being done, but currently, well done, closed needle biopsy is the one which is very useful for bone tumors. We get a representative tissue in 90% of the cases. You can see the tumor here, and this is the closed needle biopsy. You put in the thing, take a core of tissue, and then you can send it for biopsy. It's important because the placement of the needle is very important, because later on when we're doing the surgery, the biopsy scar has to be excised along with the deferred incision for managing the tumor. So based on the history, clinical findings, the X-ray findings, the other imaging studies, and the histopathology, we come to a conclusion. And then we have broad principles of treatment. This picture once again shows the broader management principles. The 4-point quadrangle of Chaffee. And the management is by always a multidiscipline. We have the medical oncologists, we have the surgical oncologists, we have the radiation oncologists. And depending upon the type of tumor, all these people, we get together, form the tumor board, and then we discuss out the general principles of treatment. The guidelines are given in the slide in front of you. Determine the type and extent of the surgery that is necessary for the specific type of tumor in a particular anatomical location in the particular age group of the patient. Now, we as orthopedic surgeons believe in the motto that life is mobility and mobility is life, and it is important to save the life as well as the limb of the patient when we are dealing with malignant bone tumors, so that we do not leave a permanent psychological scar on the patient. It was only in the last century that malignant bone tumors were treated by transbone amputation or a disarticulation at the joint. Currently, there is no role for primary amputation in the management of malignant bone tumors. Now, we have the philosophy of limb salvage, which is a type of surgery in which the tumor-bearing bone and joint are resected and replaced with mechanically adequate substitutes. Now, these I will be showing can be in the form of bone graft or in case of metal prosthesis. Now, it is limb sparing surgery or limb salvage surgery, which was the one which converted orthopedic oncology from mutilation to fascination. So, this is the basis of the management of malignant bone tumors. As I told you, it's a teamwork headed by the orthopedic surgeon. In the group, we have the surgical oncologists, radiologists, vascular surgeon, as well as the medical oncologists. I have to stress the role of the pathologist who is going to tell us the type of tumor, and the management is based on the type of tumor, of course. Now, limb salvage surgery is based on three principles of resection, based on the principles of surgical oncology, reconstruction, based on the principles of orthopedic surgery, and of course, soft tissue cover is very important, and it is based on the principles of plastic surgery. Now, as I was telling you, the reconstruction is by means of bone grafts. This is a time-honored method. And then we have the cadaveric bones where the allografts can be used. And when cadaveric bones are used, the end of the bone, for example, you have a long bone of femur, and end of the bone you have a prosthesis, the knee joint alone attached to the allograft. And then, of course, we have the resection arthrodesis where the joint is sacrificed and you arthrodese the bone with the joint. So the function of the joint is not there. And of course, the standard now which is being practiced is the large metallic prostheses which are used as substitutes for the excised bone. Now, chemotherapy is the main key factor in the management of malignant bone tumors, which raise the survival rate of bone tumors from 20 to 70%. And with this, people were not losing their limbs and the limbs are salvaged. And then we found out that with chemotherapy, there's no compromise in survival when you save the limb. So we now are in a scenario where we do have better imaging modalities. There are improvements in the techniques of resection, combined modality treatment with surgery, chemotherapy, and radiotherapy, superior principles of reconstruction, and metastasis, which was also brought under the purview of the treatment. So patients with metastasis can be managed, wherein the metastases are resected and patients are given chemotherapy. The broad group of grafts which are used after resection in all the malignant bone tumors, when the grafts are taken from the same person, they are known as autografts. And if they are having a vascular supply which is taken and then fixed to the area as I will be showing. Then they're known as vascularized grafts. The allografts can be the cryo-treated or irradiated grafts, and the composite grafts are the allografts and the custom processes. Now, this is an osteosarcoma in the distal femur in a growing child. You see the epiphyseal plate here, and these are all biopsy-proven osteosarcoma. And then after chemotherapy, the fibula with its blood supply is taken, as shown in this picture. And the fibula graft is placed, and then it's fixed to the plate. The patient obviously loses the function of the knee, but at least the whole limb is preserved, and the patient can walk on that leg. So this is an orthopedic knee. Now this is an adult with an Ewing sarcoma of the tibia, which has been excised after chemotherapy, and the fibula graft has been placed in the proximal tibia, and then you can see the skin graft done. And this is on long-term follow-up where the knee function has been preserved. Allografts are from the cadavers, or even if you have an old patient with a fractured neck or femur, the head which is taken out can be stored and used, wherein we can make these small allograft prints. Now, if you're resecting the distal femur proximal tibia, we have a large diaphyseal defect, and the methods of reconstruction can be osteoarticular grafts, allograft osteogenesis, or the APC, which are known as the allograft prosthetic composites. Osteoarticular allograft. This is taken from a cadaver, and this is the ligamentum patella. The proximal tibia, we have an osteosarcoma here, and after chemotherapy, the whole bone has been dissected, and this is the cadaveric bone, and placed in the proximal tibia and the articular. So reconstructed, you can see the plate there for the tibia. And the anterior cruciate ligament has been reconstructed in the patient. Then you have medial gastrocnemius flap to cover the proximal tibia. This is a post-op X-rays. Now this is a distal femoral osteoarticular allograft, where this is the cadaveric bone, and after the tumor has been dissected, we place there, fixed to the plate and screws. And then you can see this screw here, which is for reconstruction of the anterior cruciate ligament. And this is the patient with a post-op X-ray. There is normally a delayed union at this junction where the allograft fuses with the host bone. And to augment this, we can give bone graft at this junction to help in the union. Now, fusing the joint using allograft internal fixation. I showed you some pictures before. The tumor in the distal femur is resected, and then we have an allograft, and then we have a long intramedullary rod. So the joint here is lost. But still, the patient has his own limb. So other than the movement of the joint, the patient has his or her own limb, and then they can walk on that limb. This is an osteosarcoma in the distal femur, and the resected fibula graft. You see a vascularized fibula graft there. This is the allograft arthritis of the joint. You have a fibula, that's the allograft. The joint is lost, and fusion of the joint. Now, this is the chondrosarcoma of the proximal femur, biopsy proven, and then to be dissected. Now we can see using the graft as well as the joint only at the hip joint level. And then you can see the alloprosthetic composite. This is the post-op X-ray. You have the joint here, and that's the allograft, and that's the plate, which has been used to fix the allograft with the host bone. You can see the junction. Malignant bone tumors in expandable bones. For example, we have an osteosarcoma of the clavicle, and these bones are expandable. So we can give chemotherapy and resect the bones. And in these cases, the reconstruction may not be necessary. So these are some of the bones where the clavicle, you can see the skin was involved, was resected, and then a flap cover has been done here for that child. So the patient now has a full function of the upper limb. Now, this is a boy with the multiple exhaustosis, so an exhaust all over, and only in the clavicle it has become malignant. And this is the picture, clinical picture, and this is the radiological picture. So, in these cases, what has been done is that the whole of the scapula, this is the part of the glenoid cavity, has been left for articulation of the upper humerus, and then the boy has been left alone. There is no need to reconstruct the scapula. See, you can see the multiple exhaustosis in other areas. They have been quiescent. And you can see this boy, long-term follow-up, and you have a good function of the upper limb, in spite of not having the scapula. So the proximal 2/3 of the fibula is another bone, which is an expandable bone. And so if you have a lesion in the proximal fibula, that can also be excised, as shown in this. You can see this. And there's no need to reconstruct this. See, they're all expandable bones. Now we come to the various joints which are now available for resecting various parts of the skeletal system. And with chemotherapy, it is possible to replace these joints and then give good function for the limb. The prostheses which are now available are the standard ones which are ready-made. Or off the table, you can fit in the various sizes based on the resection, and then you have the specially designed prostheses. Now, am I trying to tell you that the custom process is the perfect method? It's an optimal method in the management of bone tumors, but then still that is not the perfect in this current scenario. I will share with you the common sites and the tumors which have been managed by the metallic joint. Now, this is an osteosarcoma with distal femur. The rules of the game are always the same. You have to confirm the diagnosis by biopsy and preoperative chemotherapy. 3 cycles of combined chemotherapy is given. And then this is the intraoperative picture, wherein the distal femur with the muscles are given this wide margin. That is, you don't go and excise the tumor, but you give a great layer of healthy muscle over it. And then this is the metal joint which has been made for the distal femur. You can see the rotating hinge component, and you can see this is a post-op picture, and you saw the patient walking. Now you can see the full function of the knee. And you can see the near normal gait of the patient. So the patient is now walking. Post-op, 14 years, long-term follow-up. Now, this is a giant cell tumor which has been of the proximal tibia, which has been curated out and graft placed there. It had recurred. So, this is a CT scan and intraoperative picture, wherein the proximal tibia is resected now. And then you can see the replacement with the proximal tibial prosthesis. This is the long-term follow-up. The patient walks with a limp, but he is walking on his own leg, and he is quite happy. You see the long-term follow-up results for osteosarcoma proximal femur. Following chemotherapy, the limb has been saved by resecting the proximal femur with the tumor, and then you have reconstructed it with the acetabular component and the proximal femoral component. See, nearly 15 to 18 centimeters of the femur has been resected. And this is the post-op, short-term follow-up, and this is the long-term follow-up picture. See his gait now and function. This is once again a recurrent tumor in the proximal humerus. When we resected out the proximal humerus, we are putting these metal prostheses, the function. The patient will be unable to lift his shoulder and the hand above the 90 degrees of shoulder movement. But then for all practical purposes, he is able to drive a car, lift normal weights, and he's a very happy person. Extending the indications further, you can see if you have a lesion where the shaft of the whole bone is involved, it is still possible to resect the bone with two joints. See, this is a chondrosarcoma in the shaft of femur. So it is not possible to resect the bone alone, wherein you have the ends of the joints, the proximal femur and the distal femur left. So we are now replacing the whole femur. This is an operative picture which you are seeing here. You can see the head of femur, and that's the tumor of the bone. The vessels are safely removed from the tumor. The nerves are saved, not sacrificed. And you can see this is the total femoral prosthesis. This is the whole bone which has been removed. And after cementation, the process is checking the movements. This is a long-term follow-up of this patient who's had both the shaft of femur with the proximal femur and the distal femur replaced. Similarly, this is the whole of the humerus with the shoulder joint and the elbow joint. You can see the function here. Now, this is a pathological fracture, pre-op. You see the technetium scan showing the extent of the tumor. Intra-op picture where the whole bone is removed. This is the prosthesis which is made. That's the proximal humerus. This is the distal humerus, and it's been placed in situ, tied with wires, muscle around, and he is having a function. He's able to use his right upper limb for all activities of normal living. He can drive, can't lift a heavy weight. And we come to some rare sites which have been treated by resection and reconstruction with a metal prosthesis. The distal tibia osteosarcoma, distal tibia, wherein you resect it out and then you can put in a prosthesis. You can see the function. The patient walks with a slight limp, and the functions, the dorsiflexion and plantar flexion of the ankle are only 50% of normal, but still the patient is able to walk on her leg with a slight limp. And this is no price to pay for saving the limb. We come to osteosarcomas, the distal radius. And after chemotherapy resected, and this is a distal radial joint which has been placed, and you can see the function. Other than lifting weights and boxing, he will be able to do all his functions, writing, using a computer, driving, all these things can be done. This is another patient with a multiple exostosis, wherein the whole of the humerus has been removed, and the distal humerus and the elbow joint has been replaced with this man. And you can see the follow-up, and you can see the function in long-term follow-up. So distal humerus and elbow joint has been replaced for this man with multiple exostosis. So you see the signs of the curvature of the forearm. So he's not a normal man, but his whole body is riddled by the disease. Now, I showed you one patient where both the proximal humerus and the distal humerus were removed and a total joint was put in. But in this case, now it was a smaller lesion, so it is possible to resect 1/3 of the mid shaft of humerus and then replace with it with the intercalary process. See, this is a replacing the shaft of humerus, and you have two intramedullary components which are inside the humerus distally and cemented inside the humerus proximally. So you have only metal in the middle third of the humerus. This is known as intercalary process. Now, a complication, aseptic loosening happened in this boy, and then we had to revise the whole joint. And then the long-term follow-up by the shoulder and elbow functions are very good. In massive tumors, it is still not necessary to amputate. You can resect out the chondrosarcoma, and if the tumor is to the joint, it is possible to place a metal joint and then arthrodese the knee joint. So that the patient has the limb but loses the function of the knee joint. The scapula and pelvis are all complex areas, and it is still possible. I have already shown that the scapula can be removed, and herein parts of the pelvis are removed and reconstructed with the joint. So this is a chondrosarcoma involving the acetabulum arising from the superior and inferior ramus of the pubis. So here it is not possible to excise it without excising the hip joint. So the proximal femur and the part of the ilium, superior ramus and inferior ramus have been excised. And this joint is known as the saddle processes, wherein this U-shaped portion of the processes is fitted on to the pelvis. And the patient is having good stability and mobility. The functions of this hip with the saddle process will not be the same as that of the normal hip, but the patient is able to walk comfortably and has his own limb. Now, currently, it is possible to reconstruct the whole of the pelvis. You do a CT scan, and then from the images we get, we can have a prosthesis of the pelvis manufactured, and of course the proximal femur. And then after resection, the whole of the hemipelvis has been replaced by this joint. You can see the clinical photo of the joint, and that's the whole of the hemipelvis which has been dissected. You have a prosthesis of the joint. This boy was doing well for a year, but then he developed metastasis and he passed away. Tumors of the scapula. It's now possible to resect out in adults, possible to resect out the scapula and replace it with the scapular processes. Now you can see the scapular process in situ, and it is the proximal humerus. This is the post-op. The patient has a good function of the right upper limb. Other than lifting heavy weights or any jerky movements like tennis or boxing, the patient is able to do all normal activities. Just because we have a tumor which is very large in size, it is not necessary to lose the limb. So limb lesions, these also can be resected, and you can see this patient. Long-term follow-up, no revision has been done. 21 years, he is able to use his upper limb. Pathological fracture, earlier stages, a fracture in an osteosarcoma was considered to be an indication for amputation, but with current chemotherapy, we can resect out the pathological fracture, replace it to the joint, and this has not affected the longevity of the patient. This is at 8 years and this is at 13 years. Pediatric age group. If you have a lesion in a small boy, the boy has not finished his growth yet. So it is possible to resect out the tumor and then replace it with a process known as an expandable process. So now this is the total femur with the expanding component. And then after 2 years, when the limb length discrepancy becomes more than, say, 5 centimeters, then it is possible to jack up the processes. You have to operate, put an Allen key and lift the process. So you can see in this picture, this is the amount of lengthening which happened in 2 sittings. So every year you can lengthen the process so that by the end of growth, the patient will have a near normal size of the limb. You see, these are all the various patients who had various parts of their body replaced by mechanically adequate substitutes, and they are doing very well on follow-up. Overall, if you see the functional outcome of the 4 common areas of bone tumors, the distal femur, proximal tibia, proximal humerus, and proximal femur, you find that the functional rating is very good. But when you place these large joints in lieu of the long bones, long term, say 15 to 20 years down the line, they tend to develop complications, and it is possible to revise them. So if you put a Kaplan-Meier survival analysis with the prosthesis with time, 10 years down the line, you find the survival rate comes down to about 44%. But the quality of life this patient has been having for this long period of 10, 20 years, which is the prime of youth, is very commendable. And so this is a work which can be reproduced, and it should be done. But the psychological scarring of the patient without the limb is not there. We have various complications I'll be showing. You see, this is a patient who is later on found to be a tumor.
Sir, we are not able to hear you, sir.
Oh, okay. The volume is better now. So this is the post-op picture. And then this patient has developed a fracture of the intermedullary component. And then it is possible to revise the prosthesis by taking it out and putting a new prosthesis. Mechanical disassembly of the joint happened in 9 years follow-up. And then we had to revise the joint. These are the mechanical complications I was telling you. We have taken out this hinge joint and then replaced only the hinge joint without changing the whole prosthesis. Proximal femoral prosthesis, dislocation, complicated. The patient fell down and the joint got dislocated, and we opened it and put the joint back in situ. Because closed reduction was not possible, we did an open reduction. These are all the mechanical complications. After putting the large joints, what happens if the patient falls down? It is possible to have a periprosthetic fracture. Peri means close to the joint. You have a fracture, and nowadays we can reduce the fracture and fix it with a plate and screws, and the patient can be made to mobilize after that. What about the oncological complications? Developed after you do a limb salvage procedure, there's a local recurrence as shown in this patient. Now we have to accept that if the patient has to lose the limb, and we do an amputation. So no primary amputation is done, but with local recurrence as a complication, we have to accept reality and then do an amputation. Now what happens if the patient develops a metastasis? Two things. If the metastasis is confined to one lobe, it is possible to go and do an excision of the metastasis. We ask our cardiothoracic colleagues and then dissect out the metastasis from the lung. Now, if the whole lung is involved by metastasis, it's possible to do a pneumonectomy. One lung itself can be removed and the patient can be saved. Now, with this, these are the various types of management of malignant bone tumors, and currently it is not necessary to do an amputation or remove the limb of the patient. And it is possible to save the limb of the patient and the life and give a good quality of life for patients with malignant bone tumors. With this, I conclude my talk and thank each of you for listening to my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for an elaborative talk on this particular subject. And it's been a pleasure to have you on the board today. And I really thank you and all my attendees for this session, to be part of this session webinar. And as I promised from Wolters Kluwer, we'll be presenting more such webinars in the future for all our products as well as the key topics in the medical fraternity. And thank you so much, sir. And also, I request all attendees to provide their feedback of the webinar on the feedback form link that we have shared on the chat section. And yes, thank you so much, sir, for being part of this webinar. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.